Welcome, I'm Ike of Ike Comics. You may remember my draw process series with First Sun and Sword, episode 1 and 2, and that started the story, and now I've completed number 3. This one is 45 pages, a little shorter than the others, but I'm shooting for these shorter length books so that I can put out a couple a year. And this time I chose to not produce it on YouTube, showing you the process as I had before, until I finished the whole thing. And so now you're seeing me at the end of the project, and I'll be not fully in real time processing my experience, but more in retrospect, just over the last 4 months, 5 months. And I'll probably put these out as a weekly video. The length will vary, maybe 13 minutes this one, but some of them maybe 25. It just depends on the length of the video of the page that I drew. So you'll see the time lapse of the page that's drawn, and that's this one here, the first page of the story. And I'll share my techniques as much as I can in this format, and talk about my process and how I think about being the practice of my art. It's been a while since I've been on this, I don't know how long, 9 months maybe, since I made a video here, and my hair's cut off and I'm in a new setting, new me, and hopefully I have new insights to share with you. And so let's get into the video. Okay. So, I am continuing to move in the direction of lots of texture, lots of lines. And in this case, I'm adding ink wash to my pen and ink process and going for a black and white book. And I'm trying to convey a very rich world full of, textures and light and objects, foliage in this forest, lots of different trees and so on. And if it were a city, it would be no different than a forest. Lots of little people, lots of buildings. I want to convey a rich world, but do it in a really loose way, a messy way, almost like I just sit down and draw stick figures, just at a much more complicated level, like a higher level, you could say. So I want to be able to sit down and just draw from imagination. If I want more variety in the trees that I'm drawing, or the swords and weapons that I put in the book, I want to do that research ahead of time. In my sketchbook, perhaps. Sometimes I can just look at things and take mental pictures. But in my sketchbook as well, kind of trying different ideas. That's the time to experiment and to learn and to reflect and judge. But when I sit down to draw these pages, I want to be in a flow state, no judgment, very little reflection. And I'm trying to draw from imagination. I didn't have a plan for this. There's no thumbnails. This is it. I just start laying it on the page. I had the feeling of seeing feet skip across stones. So I laid those feet cascading down the page. And as I started to do that, I realized that's eating up a lot of the page. And what am I going to do here? This doesn't fit panels in a sequence very well. And I realized this is page number 1. Not only was it my inclination to do an establishing shot in the first panel, but for the second panel here, the second bottom half of this page, it's a collage. It's a montage, in a sense. So when you start to play with panel structure, or you remove the panels as I've done here, and you collage these elements, you're breaking time. The sense of time is kind of broken. But you can also convey little ideas, little words, meaning, right? And so that's what I'm going for. We have the feet going down across the stones. We see each character as they're walking, and then we see another little establishing shot from a distance of them in the woods. So in the bottom left corner. This kind of collage also, not only does it not convey time, but it breaks time for the reader. A reader might kind of flow over it and move to the next thing, but they might also stop and look for a little while. But this being almost like the cover image to the story, it's your initial introduction to the story, it seems suitable, appropriate to give you a kind of splash page, a collage of things, kind of making it a little more artistic in a sense and less linear, just to draw you in on this first page. Once we get through this little swell of colors and music, then you'll hear the time start. Boom, boom, boom. And the time represented through panels. I want beats to the story, almost like music. And I'll mess with that at times. As I've gotten better, I've learned how to mess with that more. In ways that there's more mastery of it when you can manipulate it more. It's risk taking too, of course, and I'm going off of instinct. And it's risky because you don't know if the reader's gonna react the way you think they will. There's an interesting moment coming up in this issue when I break time in this sense, like that a sequence, the beats, each beat kind of lends itself to the next. Upbeat, downbeat, upbeat, downbeat. You expect this kind of thing. So each beat gives you kind of the lean in to what the next one's going to be. And then you have the next one, which harkens back to the beat before and leans into the next beat. It keeps things flowing. There's times that I intentionally break that continuity to get a reaction from the reader. So you'll see that coming up. The last book or two, they were in cities. There was buildings and lots of people. And now it's mostly foliage and cave rocks once they get in a cave. And whether it is geometric, square shapes, or it's more organic and round shapes, I'm treating them the same way. They are filler. They are texture to throw in around the people. Now, I'm looking for a good composition, in a sense that the image that I want to capture. If I was a director and I'm positioning the camera, I want a good position, a good framing of the action. I've got these larger tree elements in the foreground. There's going to be more shadow on them and more contrast to separate it from the background. I've got each character. That's one thing that's been nice about having 3 characters in my book, is they can kind of create an animated sequence. So when you see one, let's say they were running and jumping over something, you show one having landed, one mid-jump, and the other getting ready to jump. They're 3 different people, but it shows you the animation. It gives you more reference points for the reader to easily construct time, the flow of things. In their mind, they can sort of animate it much easier. I imagine that's true of books like, Ninja Turtles, things where maybe they all move together, and you can have that benefit of that. So I've noticed that. But I positioned them, in sequence. I got each one getting larger than the one before, showing this depth. And then I throw in the trees. And I'm going from imagination. Like, I want to feel some rocks. I want to feel some fungus, some foliage, some different kinds of trees or shapes. I'm thinking, what feels right? Is this supposed to feel like a dark, scary forest, or just a peaceful, calm forest? Things like that. Later, it'll change a bit. I'll change the forest a bit because it just felt like time to be a little different. So much of it's on intuition, so I'm coming in with the nib, hatching in shadow and implying the lighting. And the pencils are not super detailed, maybe more so now than they will be later in the book, since it was the first page I'd drawn in a while, and I'm trying something new. But what I'm looking for here is I started, because this is a collage, I started with the feet that are they're grouped. I want the reader to group those in their mind, so I started with those. And that way I know I'm getting the same line quality on each foot. And I know that I need them to be darker and higher contrast, so I'm throwing more in on them right now. Once I ink wash things, that'll be another opportunity to separate things. So my approach, I'm building more information every time. I use almost zero whiteout, almost zero corrections, because by going loose, if I miss a line, I'll just move the line. I'll just draw it again, and leave the mistakes maybe. So I'm building layers of detail, of really honing in on something, almost like refining. So I'm refining here, and it still isn't finished. And then I come in with the ink wash, one more chance to imply the correct depth, to separate things correctly in a pleasing way. And you'll see me do that shortly. I'm using the G pen nib and Speedball Super Black ink, and using that for the ink wash, which is in a water kind of refillable brush. Someone might use it for watercolor or just for water, and I filled that with watered down ink, and I used that. And I have a few of those, so that I have sometimes I even have I just dip in ink wash, those little watered down brushes, and I've got a few varieties. One is lightly gray, and then it gets very dark. So I have one that's almost black, and then I have a brush that's entirely black ink, the Pentel Pocket brush. So I layer those in on the next step here. I've got, so one thing I've got going here is Sword's shoulder is behind the foot. So there's kind of a, it's kind of, there's a blending of things. There's not clear layers and separation between these images. They really kind of blend together, flow together. But you gotta, do certain things to keep that space. His jawline here with his beard, and the gap between that and the boot keeps them separate. I'm keeping a little gap between things. In the past, I might have been more careful about tangents and just laying things out where there is separation. But now I'm able to, again, with this style of just adding and building things up, sometimes I'll just leave a broken line. That's partly with this loose style. I'll just let the line break. I'll just stop drawing the figure so that there's a little space between them and something else. That would be weird, It wouldn't look very good if your style was really clean, really refined, finished. Certain styles, it would stand out as wrong. But because I'm going wrong from the start, it doesn't look wrong in the end. So the more that I follow my intuition and focus on enjoyment of what I'm doing rather than perfection, or even speed of output, the more that what I produce is authentic. And if it's authentic, it's consistent. It's rather consistent, especially after years of doing this, over a decade of doing this. Earlier, my style would vary more, and some of that was because I was being inauthentic, and some of it was because even being authentic, you're learning so much so quickly, it's just changing rapidly. But again, some of that is not just your growth, it's trying, it's being inauthentic. So the more authentic I get, the more consistent it is. Trying not to focus too much on even what's right when it comes to anatomy, just going by feel and let my mistakes show. That's part of it. If you're focused on hiding your limitations, then people will see that. It won't be authentic. So there's the finished page. And that was it for today. And here is the cover of the book. This is, a black and white book with a black and white cover. I think it looks pretty cool. 45 story pages, 52-page book. Available now at ikecomics.com. And would love for you to pick up a PDF or a printed book. And I'll put a little sketch in it for you, and I'd appreciate that. So keep your eye out. If you enjoyed this, these thoughts and this process, you'll see me draw all of these pages. Hopefully once a week I'll put one of these out. See you next time.